All right, I think we're live, Chris. Welcome to an impromptu Prospects Live show here. Just wanted to jump on a little bit and obviously talk a little about the big news of the day. That's the minor league reorganization. It's, one of these sort of doomsday things. Might be positive for some other folks, especially if you're in a place like St. Paul where you're gaining an affiliated team of a pretty high level. But I think overall, there's a lot of doom and gloom around it. A lot of, communities are now left without teams. A lot of longtime baseball guys, baseball people, have been left without jobs and are now obviously out, free agents of another type. But it's kind of an overwhelming day. Like, I feel like it's kind of washed over me today. Like, everything that I've done throughout the day is kind of hung over me. I also lost a beloved affiliate in Lowell, which was I kind of didn't want to deal with. I've been in denial for a few months that it was going to happen, but it did happen, and the Red Sox put out a statement later. We'll see if there's actually ever any affiliated baseball there. They say.
What was the statement?
It was really general that they're going to seek every opportunity possible in 2021 to make sure that they keep baseball in Lowell. So it was like a very vague, open-ended sort of statement that it could be like a college wooden bat league. They could bring in like a futures league team or an NECBL or like do showcases or whatever. They have UMass Lowell that plays there anyway.
Yeah.
And the stadium's actually owned by the city, which I think is one of the things that was playing against them. Sort of politically, when you take a look at it. I think the other thing that I wanted to mention too is, the new team in Worcester, and that group has a lot of pull, a lot of sway. Brand new ballpark that was designed by probably future Hall of Famer Janet Marie Smith, and is also part of the ownership group is former, Red Sox, San Diego, Baltimore, blah, 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 executive Larry Lucchino. I think everybody knows Larry Lucchino's reputation. So they have sort of territory rights in that area. I wouldn't be shocked if that had a little bit to do with it. But I think before we jump into teams, you had mentioned something sort of off air, talking about sort of the political aspect of some of the affiliates that were taken. And I think that's probably a good place to start, just in terms of laying the foundation for this conversation and some of the different things that were at play outside of just, ballpark quality, size, distance, all those sort of things. Because some of it didn't seem to matter so much when we actually got the 120 list versus what had sort of been trumpeted and sold to us leading up to that point.
Yeah. So, of course, over the last 12 months, I've been working any angle I could possibly figure out, because originally one of my teams, Chattanooga Lookouts, were on the cut list. Even though it's one of the most historic franchises in all of minor league baseball, it was there. So, I had no power to save it, but I did want to know what was being done. And, they quickly, local politicians here quickly joined a coalition of mayors and congressmen and senators to, make sure baseball was kept in communities like Chattanooga and like other places. There were a few teams on the chopping block that I fully believe that were saved because of political friends. Early on, I have a friend up in North New York, goes to games in Auburn and oh God, I can't think of the other place. It starts with a B.
Binghamton?
No, up in the Penn League. Batavia? Am I pronouncing that right?
Bavita.
Bavita. Okay, yes. It was pretty obvious that was going, but Binghamton was originally on that list. And one thing
that Schumer supposedly was the one that threw his neck out on that one.
Yeah, well, I heard Schumer mostly did Rochester. I heard like the state, and along with Schumer, really fought for Binghamton. And the reason for that is the state has put in a lot of money just recently into that stadium and totally renovated it. And they were about to lose a lot of money, a lot of taxpayer money, saying goodbye to baseball because they were going to be cut. If you look at how the Eastern League is set up, that's kind of not that close to other teams, not clustered. There's a lot of clustering in the Eastern League, and that team is not close in a cluster at all. it's kind of like Erie. Erie's in the same sort of boat.
Yeah.
And Erie was originally on the cut list as well. And so those type of teams, and then if we move further south, there's been some talk over the last, I don't know, about 3-4 months that one of the concessions that got made was that they were going to cut. There was a possibility they were going to cut all but Louisville out of the state of Kentucky. And Bowling Green got saved. If anybody knows Bowling Green's story, in their previous division in the Midwest League, the closest team was Dayton, which was pretty far away. Now the closest team in their new division, which is like a mid-Atlantic, almost kind of California or Carolina and South Atlantic League thing, they are 4 hours away from the closest park, which is in Rome, Georgia, which is 40 minutes from me. So like it's I'm 3.5 hours away from Bowling Green, and I'm like one of the closest
3 hours from me.
Bowling Green.
Yeah, I mean that's what's kind of crazy about it. When you look at some of the way these affiliates ultimately were laid out. I will say the state of New York ended up in the end making out relatively well because they kept Binghamton. Brooklyn is now a full season affiliate with A-ball. I think that's pretty cool. So we'll be able to. Obviously, Hudson Valley sticks around, and then even in the tri-state area, with Somerset, that also, going back to what you said before with where Binghamton is. Where Somerset is in New Jersey, you're talking sort of outside the city, like Morris County area.
Yes.
It's not that close to that area in New York. That area in New York is, right above, Pennsylvania almost. So yeah, it's kind of out there in the middle of nowhere, but it is a nice park. I will say that the community itself, that's kind of one of the things they really got, like everywhere you go in Binghamton, because I hit games there a lot because my sister lives, in the Syracuse area, and it's not a terribly far drive. But yeah, I'm happy they kept the stadium. It's a good park. They put some money into the renovations. They actually have a good broadcast as well. That matters to me as someone, does try to watch as much baseball as possible.
I think I'm glad they were broadcast. I think that's one of the things that's going to pop up as well. I think you're going to see the quality of the broadcast throughout these 120 affiliates be so much better. I can't. We can all hope that everything looks like Hartford, but I think we're gonna. I would highly I would be highly disappointed if not all 120 clubs had TV next year. I just kind of see that. So
one would imagine that was probably part of what they were trying to set up. That certainly to have the infrastructure to be able to set up TrackMan and advanced systems that are stationary and set up and of the highest quality, because with all the data sharing agreements between all these teams, everybody is sharing that data. All that stuff is going into a main system that all these analysts the teams are now looking at are rifling through and doing different reports. So there's some things that happen with all that data in the background, but I think it's of the utmost importance at this point to a lot of these teams in the way that they're structuring their scouting departments or their analytical departments, where they're going away from less boots on the ground, and the goal is to sort of streamline all the information throughout baseball, because this is the first shoe to drop in the one baseball directive. Google that if you haven't aren't familiar with it, but Major League Baseball wants to control information in baseball, and it's about information more than anything else.
Yeah,
from the major league level all the way down to the little league level. Like the little league level, I'm not kidding. They want to control all that. They want to have a hand in all of it. They're selling you that it's going to be better for everybody. Blah blah blah. Now, I will say that kind of segues a little bit into the next conversation we can have here, trying to look at the positives of all this. It does streamline, I think, a lot of the lower level development to the complexes, and especially when you're looking at places like Florida now, Eddie was saying it here in the comments, but sort of struck gold, because you're going to see these guys for 2 years. Guys are going to come out of the draft. They're going to come from, the Dominican Summer League and the Tricky League and come over for instructs, an extended spring training. And you're going to see them in Gulf Coast League play, maybe for a couple of years, because each team, for the most part, the bigger clubs down there, the Yankees, Phillies, or imagine the Red Sox, will probably have a couple of Gulf Coast League affiliates. Quality is going to be a little bit better as we're eliminating short season and advanced rookie ball. So guys are going to stick there a little bit longer. And then, in a place like, Lakeland, where they're going to have probably multiple affiliates, or at least a GCL affiliate, and then they're going to have their low A team. Guys are going to be there for a long time. They're also going to be around the development hub where they have, their best facilities and probably a lot of their best coaches. And they're going to be able to sort of, I think, really have a hands-on approach and sort of coaching all across the process now. So I think that's the positive of it. I don't know in terms of, what the players get out of it beyond the development side. I don't know if, housing facilities would be better if they're going to be supplying that. They can streamline that a little bit if they want to. I don't know which teams will or not. Nutrition, and just sort of the day-to-day stuff. And obviously player pay, which has always been a hot button issue. But, I don't know if that's the sort of stuff that will be coming down the road. And maybe those are some of the positives of this, because they're going to be more willing to invest in earlier players' development to make sure that they're getting all the resources that they need and the coaching. And, it's a much more micromanaged process than what it was when guys were spread out all throughout the country. I mean, with some of these affiliates, you were talking even East Coast teams had West Coast affiliates in 2019 and vice versa. So,
yeah, one of the things while you were talking about facilities that I a few years ago I did a Cactus League trip. Just going to the different minor league sides of things, watching a few games on the major league side, of course. But one of the things that, you're driving West Phoenix, where our buddy Chris Welch is located. All of a sudden, this big 4-5 story, I think it was about 4-story building was coming from the horizon, and it was the Cleveland Indians were building essentially what was a complex, a living complex for people, and the Texas Rangers have since started one. I think that like teams like the Indians and the Rangers are already going to have that infrastructure in place where they can, monitor their players, make sure their nutrition is up to par and all that good stuff. I mean, because there's some stories, like I was reading The Athletic today. They had a terrific article about what happened during the shutdown. And, there was players that, got stuck in Venezuela that gained significant weight. And if you can control the nutrition part, it's just going to benefit the whole organization so much better. So, seeing more of these complexes pop up, and then also talking about pay and also like, per diems, all that kind of stuff, that stuff's improving, and, players aren't going to have to spend as much money on those necessities, and maybe can pocket some of that per diem for, sending home or something like that. Cause we've got a lot of players that are very, very poor, come from poor situations. This is all they've got. And then you've got, guys with families that are just making barely anything. And, they have to support their kids. So, and their wives and, that kind of stuff. So, I think having a complex, while it has robbed parts of America of minor league baseball, in the long run, it will only benefit those organizations and those players. But the first effects that we're going to feel are going to be terrible, because we're going to see a lot of guys released. We saw a lot released before, during the pandemic, and we're going to, we're still in the pandemic, but like earlier during phase 1, But like
Tiger King phase of the pandemic.
We're beyond
the Tiger King.
We're now in the phase of,
we're post-election pandemic. We're like 2021 hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still doing an election, so but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that another time.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
It's still an election season here in Georgia. This has taken me away from the ads that are popping up everywhere. Like, I'm surprised an ad hasn't popped up yet. But seriously,
Eddie's filtering them out, actually.
Yeah, but seriously though, we're kind of looking at a streamlined process that's going to happen in player development, and teams that don't effectively address issues like housing and that kind of thing are going to be left behind. I think they're already being left behind, but that's just me.
Well, and I think a bigger part of the game now too is with the draft shrinking. It was 5 last year. It's going to be 20, and I don't think either of us as guys that are around the draft think that they're going to add any more rounds. It's going to be 20, and if anything, it's going to get smaller from here, right? I think that, and we saw it this year, but I think that a lot of, we'll say, undrafted free agents, it's going to be a lot bigger part of the puzzle. It's going to be a much bigger part of the game, is signing those guys, attracting the best those undrafted free agents, because there's going to be a lot of talented guys that are getting sort of pushed out and maybe forgotten about a little bit. Guys are going to end up in JUCO, guys that may just end up in indie ball. I think the quality of indie ball too is one of the things that's probably going to boost up the most. And I would say for a lot of those affected communities that are, like a place like Boise that's switching over from affiliated baseball, to independent baseball, there might be some quality there, more than you realize.
And see, that was the thing. I was actually talking to somebody that's based out there. I think they lost their team. I think it was Salem. What's the place in Oregon? Salem Kits. I don't know. It's 2 words.
Salem Kaiser.
Kaiser, yes, Kaiser. Salem Kaiser, who they're not going to be in this league because they can't. Like, it's logistically a nightmare. But like I was saying to him, like, if you had that opportunity, the quality of player, the team, really, you're not going to have that big guy anymore that might come through. But the quality from roster number 1 to, we'll say 30 is going to be so much better and so closer that to each other that like, and who knows, there might be some on loan affiliated players. I mean, I heard that was a rumor. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be all that different from the system that we've seen, like overseas with European soccer, where guys to get loaned out and great teams own like a million different players, and guys never even play for their parent club for like the first 5 years of their career. That's totally possible that we could see something like that with some of these indie teams. But I think the bigger part of it is sort of the Corona crunch with just available spots to play at Division I programs and even top level junior college programs. There's just not going to be that many. And I think what happens is it's just a trickle down effect. We're going to have a lot of transfers over the next 2 years, and a lot of talented guys are going to end up at mid majors and maybe even D2, D3 schools. And that's where like the draft league will come into play and some of the indie stuff that's going to happen. We got Rogelio. What's up, my man? Midwest League is going to be a blast. You're right. You're gaining high A, so it's an upgrade in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's the low A, but high A is like to me, it was like the perfect level to get. That's why I was really, really hoping that Lowell would end up, as part of the Mid-Atlantic League, just for that reason, because the quality is awesome. You kind of filter out some of those guys, but you still get them young enough that it's before like anybody else gets to see them. Midwest League is going to be great, and they didn't lose a lot of teams. Beloit, as we were talking about last night, sort of offline, we were guessing that it was either Beloit or Lowell might be one of the scragglers, leftovers, and it turned out that Beloit did survive. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and so like, one of the things I did offline was try to figure out who was going where. I used I looked at Baseball America. Ballpark Digest is another place. Ballpark Digest pretty much nailed a lot of this. But there was some guessing game that I did that, and using some of my contacts, was able to kind of like fish this out. Early on, I was able to fish out that, Chattanooga had a life, and, kind of go to their little issues. This is something that there were a few things that major league teams were looking for, the major leagues, I should say, to essentially, save, your organization, whether you're a place to go, for minor league ball. Geography was a big deal. And a place like Chattanooga was perfect. We were in the Southern League, right on the border of 3 interstates. We got Interstate 75, 24, and 59 right there. Like, you can get to anywhere in the league fairly easily. The other one is just facilities. And prior to the shutdown, the Lookouts were in talks to build another stadium. And suddenly, and I haven't talked to them. I don't know if they pick up or whatever, but they suddenly stopped right before this announcement was made that they were on the cut list. In an article in February in Chattanooga Times-Free Press, Rich Zinga, I probably pronounced it wrong. I've only called him Rich. He's the general manager of the Lookouts. Really good guy. But Rich commented that, like, the facilities, like, if they expanded their clubhouse, they would have to, because, like, the stadium is right on a like kind of like embankment. Like, it's like in Chattanooga, it's like it hovers over downtown. It's a really cool location and stuff. Probably worth a lot more, not as a baseball stadium. But like, they would have to move in the right field fence 280 feet.
Wow.
To accommodate an expanded visitor clubhouse and a home clubhouse, because they don't have any room to grow. Like, it's compacted right on that lot, and that's about it. So like, that was a thing, and that killed some teams, that they didn't have the facilities to compete. Overall, I think the Lookouts were saved because of the geography, the history of the team. And then I also think it got saved because at the end of the day, I think the Reds wanted to have an affiliate there. I think that had another pull too, politicians and teams. And if you notice, there's 2 teams that were on the cut list that the Reds were able to, I guess, revive. Daytona. And Daytona is the only non-complex team that survived in the FSL. Florida, which wasn't a complex team, was cut. And a lot of that was also like, Port Charlotte got cut. Charlotte Stone Crabs. And from what my understanding on that was that there was some territorial issues in that part of Florida. And I know that was the reason why Florida really couldn't, the Florida Frogs couldn't move to the Braves' new complex, was because they couldn't, they essentially didn't have the like, even like radio broadcast rights. They couldn't even do that kind of thing. So I think a lot of that got caught in the shuffle, and the Rays, the Rays ended up like moving from Port Charlotte to Charleston, South Carolina, a very fun town, but like,
I also think it's a great affiliate. I think, Bill Murray is still part of the ownership group, I think, there. And they have a great broadcast. They have a great broadcast. It's a super fun town. I don't know about the actual facilities and the park and that sort of thing. I would imagine it's probably relatively good. But I'm happy. I'm happy Charleston actually kept baseball, because
I figured they would. It's such a good place. It really is. I've never actually been to their stadium, but everybody raves about it, and it raves about the experience and stuff. So really and truly, go back to Beloit. I was shocked that they made it. Just from a lot of my opinions about places I haven't been is based on what scouts have told me, and they pretty much give a very straightforward response whether a place is like I knew Hagerstown, like even before they said 42, teams. I'm sorry, I knew Hagerstown was.
It was like Connecticut. Yeah, it was like Norwich, Connecticut. Like I knew Norwich, Connecticut, and I felt bad because they had just rebranded with that whole, Norwich Narwhals or whatever the hell it was, Sea Unicorns.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of money on that campaign, and they never got to roll out those uniforms and just have a season to get rid of the gear. I feel bad for a lot of teams like that, and some of the more savvy I think it's one of the things that bothers me with Lowell. The more savvy organizations that have done a good job of, getting sort of fans to games and selling merchandise and becoming part of those communities. Now they're sort of left scrambling. So Beloit, are they the biggest surprise for you out of any of the teams?
Well, I mean, not anymore. I mean, Darren Jones over here, he posted that they got a new stadium approved last year. So
they did.
And that they're the ownership group of Pensacola, and Pensacola is well-run ownership. So like, I understand it now, I guess. I might need to do a little more research on that.
Yeah, that's what I had heard. But they were mentioned as a potential chopping block team. So I mean, it wasn't like it was out of left field completely. And then I guess who was the biggest surprise in terms of teams that didn't end up with an affiliate? Was there anyone that just like shocked you? I guess Charlotte probably is the one for me, but
yeah, I mean, just knowing a little bit of their history, I kind of was kind of new. I would say it's not necessarily a team; it's a region not to get another team. I really thought that the way High A was going to be constructed, I really thought that there needed to be another team in the Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, whatever. There needed to be another team up there. And the reason for that is if you look at this proposed Mid-Atlantic League, you've got Hudson Valley playing Rome. And the whole problem of this whole thing was that Rome and Lakewood were so far away. Now Lakewood isn't even the furthest for Rome, because Rome is in High A now, just like Lakewood's now Jersey Shore, which I actually, last time I went there, I went to Seaside Heights afterwards and saw the Jersey Shore cast on their house. I mean, it was a big moment. I'm just kidding. It wasn't a big moment. My niece was, my oldest niece was.
Is Lakewood that close to Seaside?
It's fairly close. I mean, it's fairly close.
Yeah, I guess. Sure. So.
Yeah.
I haven't been there.
Close. I mean, you're talking about a guy, and I know you do this too, that travels regularly 3 hours one way somewhere to go see a baseball game. I mean, I did 4 hours one way last year. So, like, anything within like an hour is considered close to me.
So the one affiliate that I'll throw out there too, that really surprised me was Kane County. It's not that bad of a park. It's really close to Chicago. And I just sort of figured that one of the Chicago teams would maybe move an affiliate there and keep them in the Midwest League. That surprised me a little bit. I felt bad because, one of our founders, Matt Thompson, that's like the only team in his area, and it's relatively close. He lost an affiliate. I lost an affiliate. I know Lancaster was another one that doesn't shock me, but it's going to be kind of sad to not see those crazy Lancaster inflated numbers any longer. But I know Reese White, who's on our scouting team, that's his closest park. He loses that one. Smata lost Boise, as I mentioned. So got hit a little bit.
Our buddy Ray Butler lost Jackson.
And Ray lost Jackson.
Killer for him. It's absolutely killer for him. And we kind of knew, like, that was another team. Like, I've never heard a scout really say a nice thing. They didn't like going there. It had nothing to do with the stadium, although the hotels weren't that close. But like, it wasn't the stadium. It was just the distance, the logistics. The next closest park is four hours away in Chattanooga. I mean, you run into that. I guess now Rocket City might be a little closer, where the Trash Pandas play, the Angels AA affiliate, which is now one of my close ones. So it's pretty cool. But anyway, like, the logistical nightmare is what what surprises me. And I thought, hey, there might have been a chance that Lexington got saved, but hearing what their owner said on, I think an article on Baseball America, I don't think they were ever even close to getting back on the inside of things. Because I thought if you're going to keep Bowling Green, you got to keep somebody close by.
Yeah.
And so I guess Lexington might be the fact that they didn't come up. Lowell would be the other one that got dropped off that I'm kind of surprised about.
Yeah, and there's some weird stuff that's been floated out throughout this whole process. There was something about Trenton got cut because they didn't want to pay for the Yankees' new weight room. Have you heard this one?
I've read a rumor or two, but
that can't be possible, is it?
It sounds kind of ridiculous.
But the thing is, it sounds ridiculous, right? But the way MLB has just absolutely straight up snatch your chain, jack move, ski mask and a 9mm to MILB. Nothing would shock me. There was nothing that could have come out of this process in terms of demands or quotes from people that would honestly shock me, because they didn't care.
Yeah,
it was it's a master servant relationship, and we really don't need you in the long run. We can cut you as we feel we need to, and we'll take on the ones that we want. I think it was funny that they took on the two biggest independent teams in Sugar Land and St. Paul, right? That we know have historic followings. They draw a ton of fans. They were running to those teams. They couldn't wait to get affiliated ball in places like that.
Yeah.
And now they're going to do this probably over and over again, where they're going to have all these independent owners and the affiliated owners essentially competing against each other for fans and, who can keep these affiliated contracts. Because it wouldn't shock me if in a few years, when a lot of these contracts come up, if they move to other independent teams that.
Yeah. We're talking, from what I understand, it's like a 5-year and a 10-year contract. The 5 years are going to the people that need to make improvements. And the 10 years are going to the solid places, the places that are going to be around. And then you've got a good share of teams that are owned by the organizations out there as well.
The other thing too.
So you've got that as well. But I look at a place and I've only driven by their stadium in Daytona, but I'm sure that, Major League Baseball wants them to make some improvements to that stadium particularly. And I would say there's other ones, probably, other teams that were on the cut list. There was probably some incentives that they were told that they had to take care of, and they've got 5 years to take care of it, or at least have a plan. And Beloit, apparently had a plan. And a year ago, they approved a new stadium. So it saved them. But we also have got to think too, is when's the expansion going to happen?
Yeah.
The whispers keep on getting louder and louder. The latest whispers are Nashville.
Which I think is probably the location that ends up happening.
Yeah, I think you're going to have two that enter. I think the other one's either going to be Montreal or Las Vegas. That would be my speculation.
I hope it's Montreal.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool if it was Montreal.
It would be fun.
But the thing is that's going, if it's Montreal and Nashville, that's 9 new affiliates that have to be filled, because you have to fill Nashville somewhere, because that's a AAA affiliate. And so from what I understand, they built that stadium in Nashville to be able to convert it eventually into a big league park. They're very forward thinking. So that's more affiliates to be added to the group. So, maybe that Montreal team has that high A team that's going to be close to, close to Jersey Shore, that they could just put that into a 6-team league and be able to, do that.
It's possible. And there'll be enough parks and teams available, I think, in sort of central New York and northern New York, with a lot of these New York Penn League teams that were essentially dissolved or thrown into these wooden bat leagues or whatever it might be. They're going to be jumping at the opportunity to potentially take on a Montreal affiliate, and just probably because people are going to be super gassed about that team, especially if they come back as the Expos. And, it's a strong possibility. And then Nashville seems like it's going to happen because you already have some bigwigs behind it, like Dombrowski didn't take the job with the Angels, apparently, because of the Nashville job. Mm-hmm. And maybe that brings some baseball back into some of those, southern communities that lost teams.
Yeah. And, that might give Jackson another chance. That might, change the landscape for Lexington. Maybe Bowling Green, becomes a Nashville affiliate, and then Lexington becomes somebody else's. You could see different things happening. I don't anticipate anybody in the Appy ever being saved into the league. I think that they're net freshman, right? It's freshman wood bat league, I think, is what they're doing there and stuff. So I have a heart there. I made a yearly visit up there. When this contraction list, I knew that league was probably gone. And, I'm glad that they've survived because there's some passionate fans out there from Kingsport to Elizabethton to Bristol to Greenville, and to see baseball taken away would have been really hard.
Yeah, and I think that that particular cluster of teams has always been a fascinating trip for me because you're not in some of these Carolina League teams, some of the stuff that's on the coast. You're in bigger towns, cities, you're kind of used to that landscape. Some of these other ones are way out there, and they're rural communities. And you're seeing a different side of America and how important a short season team might be. A rookie, advanced rookie league team might be to that particular community. And I think, that's something that probably goes a little unnoticed to some folks,
Yeah.
I didn't actually notice that Asheville switched over to the Astros. I didn't dive into every single team. I was kind of looking at who was still around, who wasn't. But yeah, that's kind of an interesting wrinkle. Because obviously the Rockies, we don't know what their low A affiliate is at the moment. Right?
Yeah, I think it's been confirmed that Fresno.
That's Fresno. Okay,
it's going to be that.
We didn't know.
Yeah, so the Asheville Tourists were a longtime Astros affiliate. The Asheville Tourists, Astros, but they were a long time affiliate. And I make a trip out to McCormick Field every so often. They got a older facility. We'll have to discount some of those home runs and stuff because they have that short porch. It made Ian Stewart blow up as a prospect back in the day. So you always have to do that. And my hope is they have opening night there, and I'm hoping to be in Asheville for opening night. One of our friends, John, Notes from the Sally, who passed away. I know he did work for y'all at Prospect Live and worked at Prospect 365 in his own little thing. I think that's the best way I can honor him is go to Asheville and sit in the stands maybe one or two nights on opening night and just, because he'd be there. He'll be there in spirit and stuff. But I was glad that Asheville got saved.
Me too.
And I was
Greenville as well. When I saw Greenville got saved, because that was a park that John would hit too. So
yeah, Greenville, Asheville, Hickory. He did a lot of. He was around. I met him in Kingsport watching Luis Medina throw electric stuff, and it just was horrible at the same time because he didn't know where it was going. But yeah, I'm glad Asheville, and I'm glad you brought up that question that we saw that because it gave me a chance to say something about John. Another thing, one other thing that I kind of when I was going through this is AAA is going to I think it's going to have some moving and shaking around. I read on Baseball America that it's going to be 10 Eastern teams and 20 everywhere else, I guess. I don't know how that's going to work out. I think it's creating a logistical nightmare, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that it needed to be kind of like the old school 10 team, 10 team, 10 team like league, with 10 teams on the East, 10 teams in the Central, and 10 teams out West. There's 7 teams in the Mountain Pacific time zone that you're combining with Central teams. And if it's 10 teams in the Eastern, there's 13 teams in the Eastern time zone. So you're like combining all of these leagues together. And I saw that Tacoma, acknowledged that they received the invite, but they didn't really say that they accepted it. They needed to look at it because there's going to be some challenges that get thrown out there. So, and for Tacoma to have to come to Iowa and maybe have to pay more money to get their players there and stuff, right now they would be flying anyway, but maybe, I don't know what the arrangements are. Maybe they're going to have to organize charters. Who knows? We don't get to see that kind of stuff. So I thought that was something we need to bring up, that while the AA teams, it all works out pretty good for them. These AAA teams, there's no real perfect way to separate them. And
Worcester is super far away from everywhere else in these leagues.
Yeah.
As this being like my local affiliate now, I'm really close to Worcester. It's like 10, 15 minutes away from my house. So I'm going to be able to hit more games than ever there. But looking at the Eastern League teams, there's nothing within 4 hours. So that's always going to be, now they're incredibly well funded, so I'm sure they're going to fly everywhere they want to. But that's kind of interesting too. There's a lot of travel in AAA right now.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how they break up these 20 teams, because as you said, there's 13 teams in the Eastern time zone. And I would say outside of a handful of teams, they're pretty clustered. And the other part of it is, I don't know. Is Jacksonville going to end up, as an Eastern team, or is Jacksonville going to end up as, one of the Western teams?
I don't know. I was kind of trying to look at this. Jacksonville's an hour flight from Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's about an hour and 10-minute flight to Charlotte. So they can feed into those hubs fairly easily.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing is if you're not based in the hub, Gwinnett is a suburb of Atlanta. So it's a county that's a suburb of Atlanta. And they're close to Atlanta Airport. You can fly anywhere through Atlanta through that airport. But there's other teams that, Rochester, you're going to have to make a connection almost everywhere you go. Your team, you're going to have to make a connection anywhere you go, more than likely. So that's where some of this gets a little tricky. And that goes into the whole Bowling Green thing again. I hate to keep on harping on this, but my buddy who scouts for an AL team, I met him in Bowling Green a few years ago, and he ended up having to go up to the Midwest League afterwards. And I was like, he's working the game, and he's like, yeah, man, I have a 5:45 flight. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, where are you even flying out of? And he's like, I have to go to Nashville. Nashville's an hour away. The airport's an hour away. So he had to get a hotel in Nashville and then fly to the Midwest League to get there. So you're thinking, okay, Bowling Green is going to have to possibly play Hudson Valley. So they're going to have to take an hour bus ride to the airport, then fly to New York, and then take a bus ride from there.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not right in the city either. You have to take a bus, and then it's going to be probably another 45 minutes, an hour.
Yeah.
3 hours. Who knows? It's New York.
There's some logistical nightmares. And that's why I keep on going back to Bowling Green, is because they only survive because the majority leader is in that state. And some of these New York teams probably survive because the minority leader is in this state. They kept the politicians happy enough.
Bernie has no pull. He couldn't save Burlington, man.
No, he doesn't.
East Lake Monsters, not happy about that either. But hey, we got crushed a little bit in New England, and I'm a little nervous with draft league and some of this other stuff as to what the draft getting pushed back, College World Series getting pushed back. How is it going to impact my summers in the Cape? How is it going to impact the talent that goes down the Cape? Will the Cape Cod League be obsolete in 4 or 5 years? That's what I'm worried about, really, with a lot of this. Now, the Cape Cod League has affiliations with Major League Baseball, so I don't think they're going to completely eliminate it. It's historic, and I think that guys like going there on top of it. I think scouts like going there in the summer too, because even though it's remote, it's an hour ride to the airport, so they can get in and out relatively quickly, and it's a relatively nice ride. And then you can go on vacation.
Nice weather.
Yeah, and you go on vacation with your family, go to the beach all day, and then hit a bunch of games, and you're done by 8:30, 9 o'clock. But yeah, and you can write your reports the next day at the beach. But I won't get into it too much. But regardless, I worry about that a little bit. I think that could be some of the blowback. I think that Midwestern baseball, outside of the Midwest League, a lot of the institutions out there, like the Northwoods, could be impacted by a lot of this. What happens to Northwood with the draft league? If guys are still going to the Cape, we're still going to have the USA development program and the national team there and all the international play, I would imagine. Maybe that takes a backseat or slows down a little bit this year, but I'm sure 2022 and going forward, that's what it's going to be like. How many of those guys are even going to go to the Northwoods? What's Northwoods going to be made up of, especially if they have an underclassmen league that's in the Carolinas and these other things? What's Northwoods going to be? Is it just going to be Midwest League kids that don't feel like, going here or there over the course of their freshman summers?
Well, I mean, one of the things I keep getting back to is and this is not don't take this the wrong way, people who have frequent Appalachia, but it's a bit of a culture difference. Every part of the country is a culture difference. I've lived in New Jersey, Arizona, and Northwest Georgia. I mean, I can tell stories about how different all of those places are. But it's a unique place. When I used to go to Greenville, I used to have to go over a one-way bridge in Johnson City and pray nobody was coming the other direction because it was right on an intersection kind of thing. So, one thing that might save Northwoods is that it's more mainstream. And in the sense that, it's a more comfortable feeling for kids that might not be from that part of the country or, that kind of thing.
You're right. But
then again, you got a lot of kids from the Southern U.S. that, baseball's still dominant down here. That's why I look at amateurs every year. I mean, it's, it's given to me on a silver platter. I don't have to do anything. I just have to drive 40 minutes to a complex, and we'll throw a bunch of baseball players in front of me, and I can make this, notes on all of those guys and take video. But that's the thing. It's I think Northwoods is going to be the most threatened of all the leagues that are existing today. I don't worry about the Cape Cod because it's the Cape Cod League.
That's what my hope is.
But I also think that the way that it's set up, you got the Appalachian League, and then you graduate to the Cape Cod League.
So maybe the quality would be better. I mean, that's the other.
And then afterwards,
I don't know.
See, I think that the draft league, and I know that we've talked about this, the Woodbat League in the mid Atlantic, I guess you would call it. Formerly New YorkPenn, formerly Eastern League, formerly Carolina League teams. I think we're going to see, guys that were in the 5th round, 5th to 20 college guys, and maybe some high school guys that are kind of not the top dudes end up there.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys that were JUCO commits, maybe we'll see some arms that popped a little bit, and we're going against, lower level high school competition. Maybe didn't play any high school ball. Something happened. We'll see that obviously this year with some teams will bang and guys will be stuck. I think we'll see that in terms of pitching is going to be tough. I think we'll see hitters because there's a lot of guys, even rounds maybe 3, 4, kind of like that range up to 5, where they might be able to do themselves a world of good by going to this league for 2 or 3 weeks and raking, but the bigger impact is going to be on the small school guys, the D2 guys, JUCO kids. I bet you we see a ton of JUCO kids that didn't get like a lot of game experience. And then we'll see smaller school guys that, I'll say like around here, like a UMass Lowell, probably you'll see a few guys from there. You'll see guys from Division 2 and 3 schools, like, a Toby Welk from a couple of years ago that the Orioles drafted, or I think he was drafted. But we went to like some Penn State school I've never even heard of, or Brenton Doyle or someone like that. I think those are the guys that potentially, end up in the draft league. Because otherwise, if you're a pitcher that's like a top 3 round guy, why would you go there and risk like blowing out your arm?
No, there's no reason for that.
No.
Going on the associate scout side, I'm currently not under contract, but I probably will be at some point. But what I'm kind of trying to say here is that, like, I get sent to look at these guys.
Yeah.
I don't get sent to go look at, the big names. I never got Espino when he was here at the prep school. I never got him because, like, the scouts are visiting those guys. That's who the scouts are seeing during the season. They see JUCO, NAIA, Division 2, Division 3 during the season only if the office is like, oh my God, you need to go see this guy. What's changed? All this kind of stuff. So it's going to give these kids exposure that they've never had before. Exactly. They're leading up to the draft. So like their exposure right now is those first couple weeks before February, middle of February, when Division I starts. Like that's all their exposure is. So like, I'll go and do these JUCO games, and at that time I'll see area guys, galore. And then like I'll be at those JUCO games and I never see anybody. And it's funny too, because like, they're really like, oh my God, why are you here, kind of thing. And like they're so nice when they realize I'm with somebody. I don't have much say, but like, but that's true. So like that league, that draft league is going to be very beneficial to those kids. And you're going to see guys scooped out that, I'm just going to say would have gone to maybe some junior Division I power guys that, they'll just draft as seniors or sign as non-draft.
They know the name.
Because, hey, they got this guy from Georgia Gwinnett College and NAIA that throws 96 with wicked movement. He might not know where it's going, but like it hasn't spent much time on the mound, but like, I mean, that's what he gets. I can't think of the kid's name. He ended up signing as a free agent with the Braves. But he was somebody I saw multiple times because it was an interesting thing. The guy threw hard. He just didn't have much pitching experience.
I think, we'll see a lot of guys like that. There'll be some great stories that come out of, the draft league and, some of these wooden bat leagues that pop up. But you know what? We've covered a lot of stuff. We're running up in an hour. We said we wouldn't go any longer than that. We already went longer than I think we thought we were going to. So let's wrap this sucker up. Any sort of, last 10%, any final thoughts, diatribes, anything you want to throw out there?
I just want this pandemic to be over so we can go watch baseball again. This is maddening. I mean, I didn't even go to any of these showcases because my part of Georgia doesn't believe in social distancing or masks or anything like that. So I just kind of avoided it, even though I had Corona and, already. I was like, man, I just don't want to take even further chance on going to a game where, I can watch video online and maybe, see other stuff. But like, I miss it, man.
Yes.
I just miss the interaction. I miss talking to people. I miss hearing the noises. I miss hearing, I even miss that stupid guy that keeps on like blocking my video feed because he thinks it's funny and he's 30 something years old. And, it's not funny. You're 35 years old. So, I mean, That's just, it's not funny. But I miss.
You're nicer than me, man. I would throw fists on that stuff, or like.
Well, I'm in the South. It might be armed, man.
That wouldn't matter to me. I'm crazy. That wouldn't matter. All right. I'm the guy that died from getting shot at a baseball game. Anyway, so first takes a dark turn, but no, agree. Yeah, I missed it a lot. I mean, I was able to get out to some wooden bat league games this year, and I saw a couple of draft guys, Frelick, Cody Morissette, a handful of other guys that may go in like round 15 to 20. I got looks at Fenway Park, and then up in Manchester, New Hampshire, with Future Stars and that whole setup. So that was great. I obviously got some looks this year, but it wasn't the same. I didn't get to go go crazy where I hit 5 games in a week, or I'm going to. I can remember like last year going to like a game in like Pawtucket, like to see Louis Robert, and then shooting out to Chatham to go see like whoever it was that was pitching like a particular day, or hitting like 2 games down the Cape, and the next day waking up and being like, I'm going to hit Lowell and like then Pawtucket on Sunday. Like I miss all that. Like I miss going just like nuts and seeing like so much baseball at all these different levels and like a bunch of talented players. Just because I think it recalibrates your eyes too,
It does.
Which is why I've tried to watch like a lot of different levels of baseball, amateur stuff, just so I can stay calibrated between like doing my draft work and the scouting projects and the rankings and the boards that we're doing now, and just what's actually good. Because if you just watch like nothing but amateur baseball at these prep events for like a month and a half straight, like you'll forget what like a plus hit tool looks like. You'll forget what real power looks like in game when a guy is trying to sell out. So he's putting balls to all fields, and the batting practice looks great and everything, but can't actually do that in game.
But I mean, that's the key. I mean, I was talking to an area guy for a team I wasn't associated with at a thing, and he was like, I did some. Oh my God, not a Christian Robinson and Corbin Carroll thing. We're going to get into that. You're going to end up getting me like banned from Twitter. But anyway, but what I was going to say was like. We were there and we were talking about a player. I won't name his name. He was somebody who ended up getting drafted, went to college, which he needed to go to college. But like, there were some scouts that were kind of like, oh my God, he's such, so good. But like when you don't see nothing but high school athletes all the time, you realize that, oh my God, that's not going to work. And I remember that scout told me, he's like, you got a good sense on this. And I said, well, it's because I watched a AA baseball game yesterday, and like this guy, I can't envision being in AA at this point. Like, you can't see that. If you can't see why my area guy had me go see him, because we knew he was going to get drafted, but like, he'd have to tell his boss, well, why didn't you turn in a report about this guy? And I had the video to prove it, kind of thing. And it was a rainy day, and that was the only reason why I had other area scouts there with me, because, games got banged in Atlanta, so they came up north. I mean, that's, kind of what happens. So, that could be that. So who do you have, Corbin Carroll or Christian Robinson?
I'm not going to get into this. It's funny because this conversation was being had like in our Diamondbacks. It might have been where the conversation or what spurred you to tweet that out, but within our Diamondbacks like board chat within our like private scouting Discord, we were having that debate, and I had pulled the receipts, I pulled the numbers, and like Corbin Carroll's batted ball data, as I've showed you, is really, really good for a guy that's that size, that young, and doesn't sell out for power at all. He hits the ball really hard, really consistently. But like the top end stuff with Robinson is great. But when I look at the two profiles, this will be the last thing we talk about when we can get the hell out.
Yeah, we're done.
When I look at the two profiles, you look at Corbin Carroll, who's a guy that can be an everyday center fielder, and he can fit that like dynamic leadoff profile. And when I use that term dynamic leadoff, I'm talking about like Johnny Damon at his peak, like one of those guys like gets on base, works every at bat because the hit tool's like a 70 and he can just beat shit off of the plate like left and right, and just wait for his pitch. And he has enough power, but it's not like 30 home run power, but he hits enough homers that he's dangerous. You can't throw him a meatball, but he just gets on base. He steals, he wreaks havoc offensively, and he lets the mashers behind him do all the work. That's the kind of guy Carroll is going to be. He can score 100 plus runs and, be a defensive asset. That to me is a more valuable player than, what Christian Robinson's most likely outcome is, which is a guy that hits for a lot of power, is a bit of a true outcome guy, probably not all that strong defensively. I think you kind of hope that he turns into Marcelo Ozuna, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
one of the things that I did this, so like I had no idea you guys were talking about this, of course, but I heard from almost all your writers like almost immediately after, or the next day. It was great. But anyway, I had written him. I had a little preview to the Lindy's baseball preview that's coming out in January, February. I do the Phenoms article there. I ranked 60 guys, and I had talked to my contacts early. I don't cover the Diamondbacks for Baseball HQ. I don't have any Diamondbacks coverage now at all with Jackson, not having baseball and they're gone and stuff. But like, I just was like, I'm reading over the notes as I'm writing up another team. I was writing up, I think I was writing up the Mets, or was about to write up the Mets. So I was really researching them and really researching the Braves and stuff, making sure I knew what I was doing. And I saw the notes from one of my scouting contacts. And then I went to the notes of another scouting contact, and I was like, I better get out in front of this before others were going to get out in front of this. So that's why I went the way I went with Carroll. Was I just wanted to, I don't know, when you write something in November that gets released in February, you want to be known as the person who's first on a thought. And I wasn't going to be first on a thought because nobody knew that I submitted the article on November 3rd. And, it didn't get released till then. So I wanted to be out in front of this because I fully believe Carroll's a special player. And that is something I underrated him in the draft. That in his draft year, I heard it from area scout friends that I underrated him, and wanted to be out in front this time. I trust my two sources on this, and since talking to Ralph, since talking to Matt, since talking to Joe Doyle, since talking to everybody at Prospects Live, since also talking to people with other outfits that might have the rankings switched. They gave me great, it was great. It was just great hearing from everybody. But what I got out of it was that everybody agreed, even the people that had Robinson ranked ahead of them, that Corbin Carroll is a really, really good player. And we need to promote guys like that. I don't ever call myself a dude that's in promotion, but somebody like that is the reason why sites like Baseball HQ and sites like Prospect Live and sites, Ray at Prospect 365, all these other sites. It's a reason we're in this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's for Carroll to blow up. It's for guys to blow up. I don't like talking about the downside. I didn't even talk the downside on Robinson too much. But I've got to do that, and I got to do that a lot. I'm behind a paywall, so the receipts aren't as hard for me to skip through. But I won't talk about the player, but my editor, was like, wow, that grade was harsh. And I said, I needed to kill the guy. And when I say I need to kill the guy's a major leaguer, I'm telling you. I won't tell the name, but the thing is we got to get out of this, that he's something that he isn't. We're in this frame of mind with this player throughout the community that he's something better.
Hmm.
And the thing is I just killed him to a bench platoon thing. I didn't kill him like into a, somebody who's not ever going to make it or anything, or be an up and down guy. But like, I needed to say it. And unfortunately, Robinson's profile probably ends up him being somebody that maybe someday I have a 50-50 chance of maybe having to kill, that's what I use, kill a guy. I know that's kind of morbid and stuff, but like, just based on his profile, there's a 50-50 chance that down the line, he's going to have I'm going to have tough words. And I try to prepare. I try to prepare my readers. I try to prepare people on Twitter that there might come a day that like we break up. I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to. And like a guy like Carroll, we're going steady now. So, it might end up into something more. I don't know, but like, I don't anticipate dropping him like a bad habit.
Yeah. Agree. All right. We just got you on a tangent for another 10 minutes on Robinson and Carroll. So that's perfect. But all right, we're actually going to end it this time. Everybody that tuned in, much appreciated. Good luck. I hope you kept your affiliates. And if you lost them, don't feel so bad. There will be baseball. Things will get brighter. 2021 will be better.
Yep.
We're going to be at games before we know it.
It's going to be great.
Yes, we're going to be positive. It's going to be like, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be like college the first week. All right, everybody. Later.
Take care.